Greg and Brandon will like this. Wide receivers get receiving yards for drawn pass interference penalties. They deserve them. Rule change number 2. Defensive players get sacks for drawn intentional grounding penalties. They deserve it. You should do it. Rule number 3. These safeties on stupid Stanford Cal banned lateral plays don't count towards the final score. You're trying to embrace gambling. Some of us had Cleveland +3. Some of us deserve to win this game. And at the very least deserve to push this game. And the moment I saw the first lateral, I started cursing. The moment I saw this lateral, I started crying because it was over. The fact that I lost this bet is a crime. Baker Mayfield, I love you. I hold you partially accountable for starting this hijinks. Just throw it down the field. NFL, change the rules. The final score of this game is 45-42. It ends there. Jenna, I'm really, really in a bad spot money-wise right now. I really was over-leveraged.
You feel better, though? You feel better? You got that off your chest, buddy? Just lay it all on us. We're okay.
No.
Hey, it was an equally tough night for Lamar Jackson. Forget the win-loss column. Look at him here. He was sliding all over the place, slipping. He couldn't get his footing. He ran for like 2 million yards. It doesn't matter. He could barely keep himself upright. You have to wonder, was it the cleats or was it something else? Bum, bum, bum.
Dun, dun, dun.
I'm not saying Baker had anything to do with this. All I'm saying is he mowed this exact lawn in 37 different commercials this offseason when he should have been practicing with the team and getting on the same page, even though it was during COVID times. I get it. I'm not saying it was his fault. All I'm saying is there he is doing something to the lawn, and then all of a sudden Lamar's having some problems footing with that very same exact field. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not putting 2 and 2 together. If you guys want to put that all together, you absolutely can. But still a good win for Lamar Jackson. All right. Back here talking the MVP race now in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers was flawless on Sunday as the Packers won and moved into the NFC's top seed. Head coach Matt LaFleur knows just how well his quarterback is playing right now, saying without a doubt in my mind, Rodgers should be the front runner for MVP. Fox Bet Sportsbook still has Patrick Mahomes as the favorite at -225. That's ahead of Rodgers at +150, still as close as ever. Greg Jennings back with us now. Greg, is the door, let's not call it open, but let's say at least ajar for Rodgers to steal the MVP away from Patrick Mahomes?
Of course, it's definitely a jar. If he continues to play at the level that he's been playing, I mean, over 3,600 passing yards, almost 40 touchdowns, and only 4 interceptions. And this is the key. When you look at the roster, look at who he's throwing the ball to, and then when you look at Patrick Mahomes, look at the weapons that he has at his disposal. So that's where, for me, again, I know you hate to start to nitpick, but when it's such a close race, you got to look at, okay, who has the better weapons? And Patrick Mahomes, he is phenomenal. He deserves whatever he gets because he goes out every week and he puts up and he performs. But Aaron Rodgers, what he's doing right now, if you take away Devontae Adams, who else are we even naming? Who else are we even mentioning? We can't even really name the other guys, and that's no disrespect to them, but it's a credit to what Aaron Rodgers has been able to do with the personnel that's around him.
Yeah, Greg, this door is wide open, and let's go back to what you said. Let's nitpick a little bit. Greg, this is how I had it a couple weeks ago. So go back to week 6, all right? And you guys can throw up the graphic. Go back to week 6 when it started to slide for Russell Wilson. And then he had a couple games where it just didn't look good for him. He was turning the ball over. I had Russell Wilson, and like everybody else, as the MVP. He then, Greg, this is the jet ski. You missed this show, right? We're talking about family vacation and who's leading the way. Everybody loves jumping on the jet ski. It was Russell Wilson. Then he threw those picks, and he went back to the tube. It's rough back there. And then Patrick Mahomes, he was the clear-cut favorite. He was leading the way. Aaron Rodgers like, hey, buddy, I'm right behind you, holding on tight. But now, how do we have it now? Let's look at it.
I love
because of those 3 picks, going back to week 6. Like, if that's what caused Russell Wilson to slide, then we got to have that same conversation with Patrick Mahomes. So we got Aaron Rodgers now leading the way. You got Derrick Henry on his own jet ski. He was just floating in a tube in the water. But he's like, look, if I go for 2,000 yards, I will be MVP. And then you got Big Ben and Josh Allen just out there fishing. Like, guys, I'm cheering for you guys. I had my opportunity. So, look, Aaron Rodgers right now is leading the way, but it's 50-50 right now. It's 50-50, Nick.
So, I don't think it's quite 50-50, but I do think it is incredibly close. I also think, folks, we better call Coast Guard because that Big Ben, Josh Allen boat is going under. No, I had no better. But so here's the issue. So if people aren't gamblers and don't totally understand what the numbers are, think about it like this. Gambling-wise, going into Sunday morning, the Mahomes had a 28-3 Falcons over the Patriots type of lead in this. It wasn't over, but it was damn close. Now all of a sudden, it's a 28-20 lead, and the Patriots have the ball, and you're nervous. Mahomes is still ahead, but oh boy, that thing is wide open. So why is it wide open? Well, because they are essentially tied completion percentage, yards per attempt, and turnovers, total turnovers. Mahomes has the edge in yards. Rodgers has the edge in touchdowns and the edge in rating. They're both #1 seeds in their conference. Mahomes obviously is 1 loss to Rodgers 3. The reason I am giving Mahomes the edge, Wilds, is because they each have had some multi-turnover games this year. Mahomes has 1, the one we just saw. Rodgers has 2, the Colts game and the Bucs game. The Bucs game in particular, his turnovers swung that game. They weren't able to overcome it. He didn't play well, and they lost. It was the worst game, arguably, of his career. They scored 10 points, I think. Yeah, it was 10 points. They got, I think, 38 straight put on him, and he had a 35 passer rating. Mahomes had 2 first-quarter picks in this game against Miami. He rallied, played great the rest of the way. He did throw 1 more pick on an unbelievable Xavier Howard play, but that's when they were up 20 and essentially had already put the game away. So you can't say Mahomes has cost his team a game. Rodgers, of his 6 interceptions this year, or 6 turnovers this year, pardon me, 2 came against the Bucs in a game they lost. 2 came against the Colts in a game they lost. So I agree with Greg that, listen, this is a Beyonce-Rihanna situation. There's no wrong answer. But right now, the slight edge, to me, Wilds, goes to Patrick Mahomes. But Mahomes doesn't have any national TV games left. He's got a very tough Saints defense coming up. Meanwhile, Rodgers in 2 weeks gets the Titans secondary on national television, and that could sway it in his favor, Wilds.
I know, but I'm going to go to Greg here. Greg, do you feel, because you brought it up, that Mahomes has too many weapons, not only on the field, but I'm going to argue that Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy, for their genius, is probably also hurting them. The other thing that's helping Rodgers is this little Karl Malone factor. Like when Karl Malone won the MVP award over Jordan, one of the things was, like, the narrative was like Karl Malone's getting old and Karl Malone worked out and look at Karl Malone, he's back. So you take all those factors in, it's like, maybe Aaron Rodgers. But when you actually watch the games, and Mahomes is putting on a circus, and they look like they're in total control at all times, despite the 3 interceptions, I'm still giving my vote to Patrick Mahomes. And here's why also. As much as I would like to make the case, and I tried to make a case for undefeated Big Ben to get Nick mad, now that Big Ben lost, my imaginary vote is going to Mahomes. I'm sorry. If you, I don't think you have a vote, but you should now that you're a media member calling games, Greg. Who is your vote going to, point blank, period?
Point blank, period. My vote is going with Aaron Rodgers. And it's simply because of what you just said, what he's been able to do with less. And it's because of the story of he was done. I was critical of him last year in the year before, he wasn't the same. Even though they were 13-3, he didn't look like this. And this year, he just looks special. And I think with Patrick Mahomes, sometimes we become lulled to sleep. And I'm not a Kansas City Chiefs fan like Nick, to where everything Patrick Mahomes does is just, oh my gosh, it's the best thing since sliced bread, because I've seen some pretty darn good quarterbacks in my day. So when I look at what Aaron Rodgers has been able to do with his team in the conference that he's in, I feel like they have the tougher conference. And when you look at his personnel, I go back to that. You get lulled to sleep with Patrick Mahomes because you have Travis Kelce, you have Tyreek Hill, you have Sammy Watkins, you have all these lists of names. You don't have all these options with Aaron Rodgers. And so you kind of pull for the guy that doesn't have as much.
Listen, I love Greg Jennings. I think, by the way, he's been doing a phenomenal job calling games this year, full schedule of games. It's been a delight to listen to you every week. But pardon me if I can't help but point out the irony of Greg Jennings saying, I'm not a Kansas City Chiefs fan like Nick. Here's my unbiased opinion on Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Don't pay attention to my background of me celebrating a Super Bowl win with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. I'd run away if I were you too, Greg, because that is a mad, exactly right. Like, listen to Greg Jennings. Mr. Unbiased, give the Packers take. You got to be kidding me. Like, I'm the super fan.
Oh,
that's where we're going with this, Jenna. Like, you got to be, get the hell out of here with that.
He makes a point, Greg. All right, well, we're going to let that lay and see what happens.